the biggest news, I don't know if this is considered big news, but LeBron James signed a 2-year, $84 million contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. Caleb, are you shocked or are you surprised?
I mean, I kind of expected him to stay there. Like, I wasn't sure. I didn't do the math in my head, but I figured he would be there until like his son is eligible to be in the draft. And sure enough, with that 2-year extension, it literally lines him up perfectly for when Bronny is drafted. So I'm not really that shocked. I feel like he'll be there until then. And I like to think that LeBron's going to sign with whatever team drafts Bronny, but I don't know because like if a team like the Pacers draft Bronny, is LeBron really going to go from LA to Indiana?
So you're saying LeBron won't come to Sacramento if Bronny gets drafted by the Kings? Why do you have to kill my hopes up right now?
No. You'd have a better chance in the Pacers because I feel like it's still California, but I don't see him going from California to Indiana or something.
Well, you did bring up a good point. That 2-year deal expires when Bronny could be draft eligible. Let's talk about some drama in LA. I'm not talking about the Lakers. I'm talking about the Clippers. The Clippers have had some serious issues recently. We've heard about the teammates in the past, about Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley, Lou Will, how unhappy they were with the way their superstars were being treated. They didn't like the special treatment Kawhi and Paul George got. And we saw some of the ways they had that special treatment. But before we get to that, I want to get to what Paul George said. Paul George had a few things to say, and what the hell happened last season when they just blew it in the playoffs?
You know, we was confident. We felt like, you know, we went up 3-1. We felt like, you know, we gonna win the next one. We lost. We like, cool, we up 3-2. We gonna win the next one. We lost. But during that whole process, like we never worked on adjustments. We never worked on what to do differently. We just literally having the same shit happen over and over again. So it started to play a trick on you, like, man, like what's going on? Like, you know what I mean? We talking amongst each other, like the conversations is like, nah, we gonna be all right. The conversation should have been like, nah, we need to change this. Yeah, we need to switch this up. So we wasn't like at the end of the day, I don't think we deserved it. We wasn't prepared enough going into it. Just us making an adjustment standpoint. We wasn't prepared. We didn't put the work into it. It was kind of just like, yo, we got PG, we got Quad, we got Lou, Trez. Like we gonna be straight. We gonna figure it out.
All that shit.
So what do you think about that? We hear Paul George talk about it's all about adjustments. He said that after games, they'd be like, "No, we'll be all right. We don't need to adjust anything. We'll be good. We got Paul George. We got Kawhi. We got a squad." What did you think about that? He kind of put the blame on Doc right there. I don't know if I read that wrong, but what did you read into that?
He definitely put the blame on him, but I mean, there's a history of Doc Rivers and blown game 7. I mean, blown leads, like all that kind of stuff. I think he has like the most blown game 7s in the playoffs by a head coach. Here's the thing, though. What he said about how the coaching staff was just like, no, we got Paul George, Kawhi, Trez, we got Lou Will. That's like how NBA Twitter thinks. And like as a fan on NBA Twitter, you'd like to say like, nah, trust me, the coaches think differently. But hearing that, it kind of scares me that maybe, you know what I mean? Like maybe the coaches aren't as in control as, you know, you would hope. And I have no problem with him throwing the blame on him. Now, Paul George did play like ass, but
to me, it's like, I get it. And I think a part of what Paul George was saying was he wasn't put in the right situations to succeed. He felt like he was being used poorly. And part of what he said was the following.
You know, the way I was being used, I felt like I was, you know, Doc was trying to play me as like a Ray Allen or like a JJ Redick, like all pin downs, all like, I can do it, but that ain't my game. Right. Like, you know what I mean? I need some flow. I need some mixes of pick and rolls. I need some post-ups.
All that.
Just different touches, you know what I mean? And so it was just, you know, that last season was just hard overall.
And I get his point. I get what he's saying. A lot of NBA players have a certain style to their game, and they have a certain way of how they like to play. And I get Paul George is kind of saying he's not that type of player that's just a shooter, that, again, coming off screens, that's just taking set shots, set threes. Like he said, that Ray Allen role, that Klay Thompson role, that's not the style he is. unfortunately, I didn't see much of that either. I'm not sure what he's talking about. He had a ton of isolation plays. Him and Kawhi were running a whole different offense than I believe what Paul George is portraying. And I agree. I don't think Doc put them in a position to succeed. I agree. I think the fact that they were saying, you know what, we have this much stardom talent and they don't. We'll be fine. We have 3 games to figure it out. I think they let that take over them too much. And I think the combination of all of that really hurt the team.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to go out and say it. Ty Lue is a really good coach when it comes to adjustments. And I wonder how much Kawhi and Paul George voiced their frustration with the whole not making adjustments thing. But then again, it comes down to the fact that Ty Lue was on that staff. Why didn't he open his mouth or something? You know what I mean?
Well, also it's kind of a power trip. I think Doc has that power trip that, hey, I've won a championship. Mm-hmm. And Doc holds that championship a little too close to his ego. And that kind of leads him to being like, no, I'm not listening to people outside of him. And I'm sure Tyronn Lue said, hey, we need to really get them to listen up. But I also think Ty Lue said that, hey, you know what? Doc lost the locker room. These guys are doing whatever they want. We'll go over. Let's talk about some of the stuff that went on in that locker room that Doc really allowed. And one of that was that Leonard and Paul George were the only players to have their own personal security guards and trainers. Okay, not a big deal, right? I'm sure a lot of superstars have their own.
Yeah.
Another perk that they had was that they both had power over the team's practice and travel schedule. So plenty of teammates were led to believe that Kawhi had canceled practices. This is where it gets toxic. I don't know about you, but I think when you start getting to these levels of, okay, you're allowed to choose when and where we practice, and if we practice, and if we don't, that can cause a lot of trouble in locker rooms.
Yeah. That's a really, really bad look. Like, Kawhi should do everything he can to get that covered up because, you know, I hate Patrick Beverley, but he's not far off whenever he says he doesn't like the star treatment that Paul George – because you're not giving everyone that opportunity to be like, hey, do we feel like practicing today? You know what I mean? Like, you're really babying the superstars when you do that stuff.
Exactly, and that creates a little bit of a toxic culture. And another thing about Kawhi that they thought was an issue was the fact that he lived in San Diego. And this one's a little bit of a stretch to me, but I think more of the issue was not the fact that he was commuting from San Diego, but more of the fact that he was showing up late to practices and showing up late to the flights. So the team would have to fly, say, 30 minutes to an hour later, however late Kawhi was, and then they would have to fly. So, again, those are that's a little bit petty, but this one also is the fact that Kawhi and Paul George didn't speak to the media until 45 minutes after the game, putting the other teammates into the doghouse to go be like, hey, you got to go answer the questions. I'm not trying to talk to the media.
You got to be a leader and go out there first. Nobody was going to want to talk to the media. I mean, we saw Kyrie Irving today say that he's not talking to the media this year, which I don't blame him. But as a leader, you got to go out there and talk right after a tough game like that. Like, you can't tell JaMychal Green to go out there. The guy's nervous.
I don't think he's a kid anymore, Caleb. He's a big
boy. The guy's nervous. But he went out there and he has to deal with them asking questions like, why was Kawhi struggling? And what's JaMychal Green supposed to say? He's like, I don't know. Kawhi doesn't say a word to us. Like,
they're asking Landry Shamet in the locker room, what happened? Why did you guys lose to the Nuggets? He's like, bro, I didn't even play 10 minutes tonight. Why are you asking me?
Yeah, they got to go out there. I mean, I don't know. This was a huge knock on Kawhi's legacy, I think, this year because the way people were talking after he won with Toronto, that guy was the face of the league. Like, he's going to lead the Clippers to whatever they want. Like, didn't happen. And I think it was a huge knock. And especially all this stuff coming out about his leadership and stuff, not good. No point.
Yeah, I think Kawhi is really getting exposed. And again, this is someone that was a huge Kawhi Leonard fan, especially in San Antonio. This is, to me, showing that Popovich really drove that culture. And I think Toronto really had that culture from Masai Ujiri and below that, hey, everyone needs to follow one suit, and this is how we go. You follow it or you get left behind.
Yeah.
And we saw that from the Spurs. We saw that from Toronto. We're not seeing that from the Clippers. Doc Rivers is allowing them to do whatever, and Doc finally got let go. And We're seeing rumors now that Tyronn Lue said he wants to hold Paul George and Kawhi more accountable, kind of like what you were saying earlier. I think that's a great idea. I think Tyronn Lue is the perfect person for that. Now it's really up to Kawhi and Paul George. I mean, this is not a boys under 12 league. You're talking about guys that are in their primes in the NBA. These are 28, 29, 30-year-old guys that are going to be able to make decisions on their own. They're not going to have somebody else tell them, hey, you need to buckle down and be a leader. So now is the time to really step up.